The beeping came first. A steady, rhythmic pulse that didn't feel like it belonged to the monitor beside me, but to something trapped inside my own chest. White light stabbed through my half-closed eyes, each flicker splitting the world into fragments of pain and motion. Voices drifted above me. "Laura, can you hear me? Stay with us." I tried to respond. My body barely obeyed. My head felt too heavy, like it had been filled with stone instead of thoughts. Every breath scraped through my throat like broken glass. The stretcher jolted beneath me. Something warm and sticky clung to my cheek. Blood, maybe. My hair stuck to my skin in damp strands. "Who did this to you?" someone asked. "Laura," the voice returned again, softer this time. "Stay with me." My eyes shut without permission. And suddenly I wasn't in the hospital anymore. I was back in the foyer. The mirror above the marble table shattering in slow motion, each piece catching the chandelier light like falling stars. My father's voice cut through it all, cold, controlled, familiar. "Don't bring shame on this family." Then the impact. The sharp crack of his hand against my face. The world tilting sideways. My mother's fingers tangled in my hair, her voice sharp with panic. "Look what you made him do." And Daniel, my brother, standing just behind them. Watching. Firking. Like my pain was something expected. Something earned. A punchline he'd been waiting years to hear. "They wanted a jet." My own voice came out broken, barely audible, but it was real. A private jet. A birthday gift. A symbol. Another trophy for Daniel. The heir, the center, the one everything bent toward. Not me. Never me. I had been the structure holding everything up. The invisible scaffolding of a family that only noticed me when something needed fixing. Managing, smoothing, sacrificing, until usefulness became the only language they understood. A monitor beside me sped up. Beep. 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 Faster. More frantic. "Hang on, Laura," a voice said. "We've got you." The kindness in it almost undid me. The emergency doors burst open. Cold air hit my skin like a shockwave as the stretcher rolled through polished hospital corridors. Lights blurred overhead, turning into streaks of white I couldn't follow. Hands moved around me, steady, practiced, careful in a way I wasn't used to. Careful with me. That was the strange part. I had spent my entire life being useful, not cared for. A nurse brushed hair from my forehead. "We're going to take good care of you, sweetheart." Sweetheart. The word didn't belong in my world. It felt like it came from somewhere else entirely. A tear slid down my temple before I even realized I was crying. And for a moment I almost apologized for it. Then I stopped. No more apologies. Not even here. If you're hearing this, you might know someone like me. The reliable one. The responsible one. The one everyone praises for being strong, which usually just means easy to overlook when it hurts. There's a moment like mine, different for everyone, when duty stops feeling like love and starts feeling like confinement. Mine began with shattered glass and a father's rage. With the quiet certainty that my worth had always been conditional. I gave everything until there was nothing left that belonged to me. And when I stopped giving, there was only silence. That silence wasn't weakness. It was the first choice I ever made for myself. As they rushed me into the trauma bay, something shifted. I wasn't disappearing. I was breaking through. The version of me that lived for them was ending. And something new, unfinished, untested but real, was forcing its way into existence. When you're a child, you think love is automatic. Like air. Invisible. Constant. You only realize it matters when it's gone. I grew up in a stone mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut. A place built more like a monument than a home. Success wasn't encouraged there. It was expected. Worshipped. Enforced. My father, Richard, built empires. My mother, Catherine, built appearances. And together they built a family that looked perfect from the outside, and only worked if you never looked too closely. My brother Daniel was the future. I was the support system pretending not to exist. Being well-behaved wasn't a trait. It was a condition of survival. At 8, I managed schedules no child should think about. At 12, I edited Daniel's essays so my father could point to him as proof of perfection. When I asked for help once, my father didn't even look up from his paper. "Laura, you're self-sufficient. Daniel has pressures you don't understand." Self-sufficient didn't mean strong. It meant alone. When I won the state science fair, I ran home holding the ribbon like it meant something. My mother barely looked up. That's lovely, dear. Put it in your room. Don't interrupt the caterer. Daniel's participation trophy sat in glass behind reinforced lighting in my father's study. Mine went into a drawer. Achievements weren't celebrated. They were categorized. Useful or irrelevant. And mine were always the latter. So I learned to shrink. To adapt. To disappear in plain sight. Not because I was weak, but because I was trying to survive a place that only made room for one child to matter. And for years I did. Quietly. Perfectly. Until even that wasn't enough. It's for the family, my father said. The next morning they sat me down like it was a routine meeting and explained that my savings were no longer optional. They were needed for a critical family investment. I watched the balance I had built over years of work. Late nights, skipped breaks, every small sacrifice I had made for a future that wasn't theirs, vanish out of my account. They called it selflessness. It felt like erasure. Not help. Not teamwork. Theft, dressed up as duty. The first real crack in my reality came when I was 17. A plain envelope arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. My grandfather, my mother's father, had died years earlier. He had been quiet, observant, the only adult who ever looked at me like he understood what silence in that house really cost. Inside that envelope was a trust. Not endless wealth. Not power. But enough. Enough to leave. Enough to breathe. Enough to choose something other than survival. The letter from his lawyer was precise. The funds would be released to me at 25, or earlier in cases of extreme hardship. One line stood out, underlined in careful ink. For Laura and Laura alone. For the first time in years I felt something dangerously close to hope. Then the door closed on it. Because the lawyer notified my parents. And everything changed. That's family money, my father said that night at dinner like it was already decided. It will be used to secure Daniel's position. He leaned back, completely certain of his right to say it. We'll need you to transfer management rights to me. Across the table Daniel smirked. You should be proud, he said. Investing in my future. You don't really need it anyway. I felt something hard settle in my chest. Not fear. Clarity. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about ownership. Of my life, my future, my name. I won't sign it, I said quietly. Firmly. And that was when the pressure began. After the trust was revealed, the house changed. It didn't get louder. It got colder. My mother cried often, telling me I was breaking the family with my selfishness. My father stopped asking and started instructing, his voice turning into something sharp, surgical. You are not equipped for this responsibility, Laura. You will ruin it. Daniel didn't bother with subtlety. Just sign it, he would say casually. You'll get married anyway. Someone else will handle your life. It wasn't just arguments anymore. It was pressure applied from every direction until even breathing felt like disobedience. And slowly, insidiously, they tried to turn my future into something I owed them. But I had already started planning my exit. I met with my grandfather's lawyer, Mr. Harrison, in secret. He listened without interruption, then nodded once as if nothing I said surprised him. Your grandfather anticipated this, he said quietly. The trust is ironclad. It was designed to protect you. Protect you. Not them. For the first time I believed I might actually be safe. If I moved carefully enough. I opened a private bank account. Researched apartments in the city. Started shifting my most important things into a storage unit I paid for in cash. Piece by piece, like I was preparing to disappear from a life that refused to release me. But the house noticed anyway. It always did. The confrontation came on a night that felt too quiet. My father stopped me in his study. He didn't sit. He didn't pretend. His hand slammed onto the desk hard enough to shake the objects on it. I am warning you, Laura, he said, voice low with controlled rage. Do not defy me. This family has given you everything. He stepped closer. You owe us. Then his voice dropped even further, barely a whisper now, sharp enough to cut. There are ways to make you cooperate. Don't make me choose the hard way. Something in my body went still. Not fear exactly. Recognition. This wasn't discipline. This was control. And I understood in that moment that waiting would cost me everything. I had to leave. My plan was simple. The night after Daniel's 28th birthday party, I would disappear. No scene. No warning. Just absence. But they moved first. The party was exactly what they always wanted it to be: perfect, polished, performative wealth arranged in every corner of the garden. Glassware. Laughter. Power dressed as celebration. My father stood to give his toast, voice carrying easily across the lawn. He praised Daniel's brilliance, his ambition, his inevitable success. Then he turned to me. "And we must thank his sister Laura," he said, smiling faintly now, "whose contribution will secure Daniel's next acquisition." He lifted a document. A Gulfstream jet. Applause followed immediately. Like it was normal. Like I was already irrelevant. My father extended a pen toward me. "Sign it," he said warmly. "Show everyone what family loyalty looks like." The world narrowed. Every face turned toward me. Daniel was smiling. My mother's eyes warned me to comply without a word. The pen hovered in the air like a verdict waiting to be accepted. My heart pounded, but my voice when it came didn't shake. "No." A ripple went through the crowd. "There is no jet," I said louder now. "And there will be no transfer." I looked at each of them in turn. "The trust is mine. My future is mine." My father's expression hardened instantly. "Don't humiliate this family," he said through his teeth. "You owe us." Daniel grabbed my arm. "Sign it," he snapped. I pulled free. "I owe you nothing." That's when my father moved. Fast. His hand struck my face with brutal force. The world tilted. Glass shattered somewhere behind me as I hit the foyer mirror, pain exploding through my body in sharp, blinding waves. The ambulance ride was noise and motion and fragments of light. Everything felt distant, like it was happening to someone I used to be. At the hospital, the doctors spoke in clinical terms. Concussion. Contusions. Observation. But what I felt wasn't medical. It was ending. A social worker named Sarah arrived later. Calm voice. Steady eyes. "Laura," she said gently, "we are required to file a police report. What happened to you is not a family matter. It's a crime." For the first time, no one in that system was minimizing it. No one was calling it love. Just like that, the truth stopped being something I carried alone. And I told them everything. They took my statement and I saw it immediately. The shift in their faces. Not sympathy. Not hesitation. Resolve. The kind that means something is already in motion. The next morning, everything moved fast. My father was arrested at his office on charges of assault and battery. By noon, the news had broken. Sterling CO arrested after daughter assault allegations. By evening, it had spread everywhere. The headlines were ruthless, unforgiving, the kind designed to tear down empires in a single breath. Sterling Industries' stock began to fall before the day was even over. My father, Richard Sterling, a man who had built his entire identity on control and untouchability, was forced to post bail under a spotlight he could no longer command. $100,000. And a mugshot that said more than words ever could. But rage. Disbelief. For a moment I almost felt satisfaction. But even then I knew better. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of his retaliation. 2 days later, a courier arrived at the women's shelter where I was staying. A sealed legal petition. Emergency conservatorship filing. My father wasn't just defending himself anymore. He was trying to erase me. The claim was simple and vicious. That I was unstable. Emotionally unfit. Incapable of managing my own affairs. If granted, he wouldn't just avoid consequences. He would take my trust. My independence. My voice. It wasn't a defense. It was a dismantling. And it was meant to make me look like I was imagining all of it. Like I was the problem. I called Mr. Harrison immediately. "He's filing for conservatorship," I said. My voice was steady. Almost detached. Pause. Then his reply, calm and certain. "Don't worry, Laura. This is exactly what your grandfather prepared for." That sentence changed everything. The next morning, I met Mr. Harrison in person. He looked older than I remembered. Tired in a way that wasn't physical. "Your grandfather was a remarkable man," he said quietly. "But Richard didn't just ruin his career. He exhaled. He destroyed his life." I didn't speak. So he continued. "Arthur Gable, the man I had known only as my quiet, distant grandfather, had been a scientist. A brilliant one. He developed a groundbreaking biorefining process. The foundation of what later became Sterling Industries. Richard wasn't the creator. He was the junior partner. And he stole it. He forged documents, refiled patents under his own name, locked Arthur out of his own work. And when Arthur fought back, he lost everything. Status, work, health. Then his heart gave out. I felt something inside me go still. Not shock. Recognition of betrayal taking a shape I could finally see. He knew, Mr. Harrison said. Before he died, he prepared for everything. He placed a key on the table. Evidence. Originals. Notebooks. Forgeries. A signed confession from a chemist Richard had paid off. And one last thing. A cassette tape. We opened the bank deposit box together. Inside was not just evidence. It was a lifetime of truth, preserved with surgical patience. My grandfather's handwritten journals sat beside my father's forged documents like two versions of reality arguing with each other. But it was the tape that mattered most. Mr. Harrison placed it into a recorder. A click. Then my grandfather's voice, fragile, worn down by time. Richard, just admit it. For your own conscience. Pause. Then my father's voice. Young. Completely unashamed. The world doesn't care about conscience, Arthur. It cares about winners. A chill moved through the room. I did what you couldn't, he continued. I built it. And I kept it. I stopped the tape. My hand was shaking. But there was more. There always was. Arthur hadn't just documented betrayal. He had prepared a counterstrike. A hidden lawsuit. Filed years earlier through a shell corporation. He had won. And buried inside the settlement structure was something no one had noticed for a decade. Royalties. Ongoing. Permanent. Compounding quietly inside my trust. Mr. Harrison looked at me carefully. $83 million, he said. I didn't respond immediately. The number didn't feel like wealth. It felt like consequence. You have a choice, he said gently. Walk away. Or reclaim everything your grandfather lost. There was no choice. Not really. Because this had stopped being about me a long time ago. It was about him. The conservatorship hearing was supposed to be my father's stage. And he played it well. He arrived composed, confident, every inch the concerned parent protecting a troubled daughter. My mother sat behind him, hands folded, eyes lowered. Daniel wore grief like a costume he had practiced in advance. Their lawyer spoke first. Carefully curated words. Emotional instability. Erratic behavior. Financial paranoia. My escape plan was reframed as delusion. My refusal to fund Daniel's jet became evidence of irrational thinking. It was elegant. Almost convincing. Until my turn came. I didn't bring a polished legal team. I brought Mr. Harrison. And I brought the truth. Mr. Sterling, he began evenly, you claim your daughter is mentally unfit. Is it also your claim that Sterling Industries is built on legitimate invention? My father's attorney shot up immediately. Objection, irrelevant. It is absolutely relevant, Mr. Harrison replied without looking away from the judge. It goes directly to motive. The judge hesitated, then nodded once. Proceed. And the room changed. One document at a time the truth unfolded. Original research. Forged patents. Confession. Paper trails buried for decades. My father's control began to crack, not loudly but visibly. Then the tape came out. No, my father snapped, rising. That's not admissible. It was recorded legally, Mr. Harrison said calmly. In a one-party consent jurisdiction. My father's voice filled the courtroom again. Arrogant. Certain. Proud of what he had taken. And that was the moment everything collapsed. The judge leaned back slowly. Then forward. The silence that followed was absolute. The petition for conservatorship is denied, she said. Pause. And I am referring this evidence to the district attorney for investigation into fraud and intellectual property theft. My mother made a sound, small, broken. Daniel stared at his father like he was seeing a stranger for the first time. And my father looked at me with something sharper than anger. Loss. As we stepped out, cameras flooded the hallway. Reporters shouted questions. I stepped forward. And for the first time I didn't hesitate. My name is Laura Gable, I said clearly. But the name I carry with pride is my grandfather's. I looked into the cameras. Richard Sterling is not a victim. He is not misunderstood. He is a thief. And today the truth finally caught up to him. 6 months later. The Gable Institute for Applied Sciences stood where silence used to be. Glass, light, motion, built not as a monument to revenge but to restoration. The fall of Sterling Industries had been total. Fraud charges. Assault conviction. Federal sentencing. 20 years. The empire collapsed with him. My mother faded into a smaller life far from headlines. Daniel disappeared into work he never prepared for. He sent one message. You destroyed everything. I didn't argue. I just replied. He did. The $83 million became the foundation of something new. Not power. Purpose. Grants. Research. Ethical science. The kind my grandfather was never allowed to finish. One afternoon, a young researcher stood in front of me presenting a clean water filtration model. Nervous, brilliant, alive with possibility. And I understood something simple. This was what inheritance was supposed to feel like. Not control. Not legacy theft. But continuation. A month after sentencing, a letter arrived from prison. One line. You're just like him. My father meant it as an insult. I framed it anyway. Because he was right. But not in the way he thought. And if there is anything left to say now, it is this. Power is not what you take. It is what you refuse to surrender. My name is Laura Gable. And this is what it looks like when truth finally inherits the story.